My name is Okiya Mtoto Koichi, Senator elected by the people of Busia, Parliament of Kenya. So I'm a Senator of Kenya. I serve both the republic and I serve people of Busia. And at my heart, I'm a human rights defender. And I believe in the rule of the law, not the rule of men. The country of Kenya is planted thick with laws. There are very many laws that have been put there to ensure that the country remains stable, the country remains sustainable, and the country progresses in a way that the limited resources that we have are used. There's transparency and accountability, and everything that is done within the confines of that law. We cannot assume that there is a choice between keeping the law and development. Development and the law are not mutually exclusive. Development can only happen because of the law. That's long-term development or whatever. So when you look at the issue of the Rirut-Ngong Railway, a lot of things were done that were not properly worked on. Even simple things like public participation, things like alternative routes, things like whatever. If you look at the EIA, it's very shallow. It contains contradictions and stuff like that. And so for me, where I stand, it is very clear that somebody took shortcuts in terms of conceptualizing and then proceeding to implement the Ngong-Rirut Railway project. And there were many other alternatives that were not considered, that are on the table, like the dwelling of the road, the doing of whatever. So we require to have a conversation around those things to be able to decide and say, okay, this is the most legitimate way of going about. Number two was the question of procurement. We just went for direct procurement in a situations whereby you could not justify it. Yeah, the CBRC have done the standard gauge railway, but this is a meter gauge railway. So the many people can build a railway. So we could have had a competitive bidding, so that the quality, assuming we're done the public participation, we're going through all those stages, and agreed that the most viable way of addressing the transport issue that we're trying to address is building a railway, then we could have gone ahead and done competitive bidding, so that you can get the benefits of competitive bidding. Now, after that, you come to the question of the cost and the source of funds. We are giving money, we are getting money from the Railway Development Fund, which is defined strictly for the SGR, expansion of the SGR network, not of the meter gauge railway. So where does that authority come from? When Parliament have said you're going to tax Kenyans so much, ring-fenced it for a particular project. How do you get money out of that fund to do other things? And that fund is heavily abused. I even have evidence of over 1.2 billion having been taken out by some influential person and used it to buy private land. And you see, this Railway Development Fund is a fund that has a lot of money. So where do they get the legitimacy to use that money for a purpose that was not intended by Parliament? That's the other thing. Then number three is the person implementing the Kenya Railway Corporation is bankrupt from their own books. They are bankrupt. They are being sustained by taxpayers. They have a huge debt of about they are in the red by 79 billion. How do they become a party that is implementing a project like that? And over and above that, the Ngong Current Railway is just part of a pipeline of projects worth 2.8 trillion shillings that the Kenya Railway has allegedly or purports to be able to implement, and they should be given money. So this is a conduit for stealing from the public. And then the other thing comes up is China Road and Bridge Corporation. Why is it not taking all the contracts? Yeah. Why is this happening? So there are very, very many questions that need to be answered. And that's why I went to court and said, can you stop this project temporarily so that we can have an answer to these questions? The current people have been reading in the papers who are complaining that they have tried to get information on what is happening. It's not there. So that's how then we end up where we've ended up. That I'm saying let us do this thing according to the law. It says nothing else. Either we have a law or we don't. And for as long as we have got a law, we must obey it. We cannot bend the law. We are the ones to bend to the law, or we remove it from our books. So if it's a lawless country, then why should I drive on the left? I should drive wherever I want to drive on the road. Why should I drive on the left? Can you imagine a situation whereby Kenyans, because they say I'm in a hurry, you must get to wherever I'm going, I'll drive on any side of the road. We'll end up with a situation whereby nobody can move. That's how important the law is. The law guides us, the law protects us, the law ensures that there's harmony in whatever we are doing. So even anybody looking at what you have done will understand, okay, this thing is being done and it's going to benefit the people. You cannot sit in a boardroom and think that your decisions are what matter. Even those people outside the boardroom have ideas, have got views, have got concepts. We want to know if you investing so much money in a project, what impact does it have on other things? Are there cheaper ways of doing what you want to do and achieving the same result? Are there better, environmentally more feasible ways of doing it and achieving the same result? So those are the things that we have in mind. Personally, have in mind that once we operate within the confine of the law, nothing can go wrong. And development in this country can never be blocked by the law. Because development, the foundation of development is the law. Where there's no law, you cannot develop. So assuming you take out the question of security, who will even use that railway if we want to go to the law of the jungle? So let us embrace the law. Kenya is planted thick with laws which are meant to protect and to ensure that we develop into a modern and sustainable country or economy. Otherwise, there's nothing else. The Article 3 of the Constitution says we must we must stand up for the Constitution. I'm a citizen. The biggest office you can occupy in this country is to be a citizen. And a citizen is one who wants to see the country functioning the way it is designed. So the reason I take on cases, and not just that, I take on very many cases, is because I believe that as a citizen, I've got an obligation, I'm a duty bearer, to see my country operating and growing like any other country. And I would love to see Kenya become a modern state. And a modern state can only happen when we obey the law. We shall never embrace modernism without the law. We shall be primitive. We shall be Stone Age if we disregard the law. The law has been an aspect of development. Look at all societies. Look at the communist world, the socialist world. Look at the capitalist world that have developed. They have done things in a similar way, despite of the political persuasion. They've had efficiency, they've had rule of law, they've had the saving culture, they've had all these things happening. Capital accumulation have happened. That's how you find Russia is socialist, but it's a superpower. America is a capitalist, it's a superpower, you see. But if you look at the ingredients that have made them superpowers, they have invested in education, they have invested in the sciences, they have invested, they have obeyed the law, they have not used public office to make themselves rich. They have used public office to serve. So these are universal building blocks that don't defer to any political ideology. So I also believe that we must equally get the basics right. Then we shall just be able to fly to the skies, to the stars. They're going to be liable, so because when you look at the contempt application that has been made by Mr. Kanjama, he has named the CEOs of those organizations to be personally held liable, and one of the issues we are demanding is that they be committed to jail. But so far we're hearing that there have been stoppage here and there, and so we hope that they will obey the law so that the court can have a chance to listen to us, listen to them, and adjudicate. There's nothing else we are asking for. That one is something that is for scientists to determine. And the only thing I can say that I've looked at the environmental and social impact assessment report, which I've dismissed as not worth the paper it's written on. There are key parameters that must be seen in that report. They are not there. So also the fact that it came in after they began work and things like those are things we are discussing, and we have taken them before court. And so I may not be able to speak much to it, but my position was that the study that was done was a bit shallow and misleading, because it began and I've given my reasons to the court. The court will look at it, but all of it is that the court has said, okay, stop. We look into those things. So those things are being looked at in the courts. I'm not there. I'm not there yet. I'm just saying that let us have a scientific engagement with the problem. And I think that engagement has not been new, because we began dwelling the railway, the Ngong Road from Nairobi. It reached Karen and stopped. I've never known why it stopped. Maybe if they dwelled it to Ngong Town, we would not be experiencing what we used to experience. Because even the Ngong Road, there used to be terrible traffic before it was dwelled. So those are the alternative things that need to be discussed, and they ought to have been discussed before somebody said, put a railway here. And what kind of railway? It's not even electrical, it's a diesel railway. You see, the technology is also outdated. So let us not discuss the merits of the whatever. The issue is that those are issues to be discussed in the court. And we now begin saying, tell us what scientific studies are there to show that dwelling the road to Ngong would not be an alternative to the transport crisis that you have between Ngong and Ruta. Obey the law. We don't have anything else. Obey the law. There's no option. Look at the book of Genesis, the creation stories. When Adam and Eve disobeyed the law, they lost paradise. So who wants to lose their paradise? So let us obey the law as we have it, and the country will fly. The country will move forward. We stop stealing. We stop disregarding other things that the law says you don't do. We go ahead. You haven't seen on our roads, every day, people are dying on our roads, and when you go back, it's disregard for the law. Either the vehicle was not serviced, the driver was not qualified, the driver was drunk, the driver was over speeding, and you'll find that if we had just been able to follow the traffic code, you have serviced your car, you are sober, you are driving at the correct speed, the engineer who designed the road has designed it well. We don't have this carnage we have on our roads. We don't need to look anywhere to see the impact of disobeying the law. Look at our roads, the carnage on our roads, and you'll see why it's important to obey the law. But we don't want that culture to go into everything that we do. That's my message to Kenyans. Obey the law and reclaim your paradise. The law is your birthright. You don't give it away. You become like Esau. It's your birthright. So keep the law and follow the law. Beginning with the constitution, the statutes made by parliament, and the regulations made by the executive with approval of parliament. We follow them. And there will be no harm. That's for the court to decide. But I've done a good case. I'm happy with what I've done. And I leave it to the court. I still have I want to be able to persuade the judges to agree with me. So the fact that you have stopped it, we hope that everybody will obey. Then you go to court. I make my case. They reply, and the judges may adjudicate. I have a very good case, and it has very, very good chances of success. That's what I can say.